Hello, Americans. Another friend subscribers around the world. Right here, man. Today, man, a little bit breezy, but nice. Pretty dang warm now this afternoon. This morning was just above freezing, man. It was pretty dang chilly. Today, I'm actually going to, let's talk about Sasquatch, man. Bigfoot. You know, that, whether you're a believer or not, this muskrat actually sent me this video over that I watched, and I was like, wow, man, this is, and it was probably the most interesting video, you know, looking at everything and how everything comes together, all the way to the 411, missing 411s, and the just everything. You know, if you don't believe, it's definitely something to think about. Do I believe? I want to believe. I've spent my whole life up in these mountains, and you know, and I've had gut feelings and different things. A lot of times, you know, and the feelings more, I would say more, the feelings that I've had were more, you know, like a mountain lion or something like that. You know, not seeing them, but, you know, just feeling something eerie or whatever. Actually, on camera a few years back, I was in a spot, and there was something, man. I don't know what it was, man, but it was a gut feeling, and I just, on camera, man, ended up just throwing my stuff back in the truck, and away we went, man. You know, there was just something that was telling me to get the hell out of there, and I did. But, dang. If it ain't that, man, the other thing that's been going on all morning, they're doing a new build over here quite a ways, but I don't know what the heck they're screwing together or cutting or what, but man, it has been so loud. And then if it ain't them, it's the dang chickens. Anyway, man, that I'm gonna share this video with you. It is definitely the most interesting, you know, where you'll think about, you know, it'll make you think about things for sure, and the connections are just unreal. So let's check it out.
Just a very unlikely place to expect an elusive creature like Sasquatch is described as to venture out into the open in the broad of daylight. I would suspect it would be more likely to investigate or take advantage of that under the cover of darkness.
Google's DeepMind quietly fed every documented Bigfoot sighting since 1958 into an AI system, expecting it to expose a hoax tradition or reveal an undiscovered ape. What the algorithm found was neither. Across 66 years and 10,000 reports, the pattern was so specific that the researchers struggled to put it into words. And the part that disturbed them most was not whether Bigfoot was real, but what the data showed happens to the towns where Bigfoot is seen most often. The database. In late 2024, researchers at North American universities partnered with Google's DeepMind division to run the most comprehensive analysis of Bigfoot sighting reports ever attempted. The goal was simple on paper: apply advanced artificial intelligence to decades of accumulated sighting data and determine whether patterns exist that might reveal the nature of the phenomenon, whether biological, sociological, or something else entirely. The team compiled every documented Bigfoot sighting since 1958, the year the term Bigfoot was first popularized following the discovery of large footprints at a Northern California logging site. The database included over 10,000 reports from the United States and Canada spanning 66 years.
Seriously, look how big it is. I don't think it is a human. I think it's a Sasquatch.
It was a bluebird January morning here in the foothills of northeast Provo when a group of guys saw a figure on the mountain that looked like something they've never seen before.
The reports were drawn from research organizations, law enforcement records, Park Service incident files, newspaper archives, and witness interviews conducted by investigators. Each report was coded with over 150 data points, geographic coordinates, date and time, weather conditions, terrain type, proximity to water sources, witness demographics, creature behavior described, physical characteristics reported, evidence collected, dozens of variables that might reveal patterns invisible to human analysis. The AI was trained on millions of wildlife distribution patterns, human perception studies, hoax detection protocols, and environmental data. It was designed to identify correlations, detect anomalies, and find organizational structure in the data without preconceptions. It did not care whether Bigfoot was a real creature, a misidentification phenomenon, or an elaborate cultural hoax. It just looked at the numbers. The contributing archives were extensive. The Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization supplied over 5,000 reports. The North American Wood Ape Conservancy provided detailed investigation files from hundreds of cases. Academic researchers added historical newspaper reports stretching back decades. Park rangers and Forest Service personnel handed over incident reports from national forests and parks across the continent. Every entry was verified for basic credibility, and obvious hoaxes, secondhand accounts, and reports lacking specific detail were excluded.
An old newspaper report from 1892 reports a large, upright being with thick hair covering its head and shoulders. But the word Sasquatch didn't exist then. They chose to call it the wood booger.
The final data set held over 10,000 sightings, each one a detailed first-hand account with a specific location, date, and description. The geographic distribution covered every U.S. state and every Canadian province, with heavy concentration in the Pacific Northwest, the Appalachian region, and the Great Lakes states. The temporal distribution showed increasing report frequency over time, but the AI controlled for population growth, increased outdoor recreation, and the Internet's effect on report collection. Witnesses ranged from experienced hunters and wildlife biologists to casual hikers and people driving down rural roads at night. Time of day varied from midday sightings in full sunlight to nighttime encounters. The data was about as clean as anyone has ever managed to assemble on this subject. The hot zones. The first major finding was geographic clustering far more specific than habitat preference alone could explain. The AI identified approximately 150 geographic hot zones, where Bigfoot sightings concentrate at rates far exceeding what random distribution or simple habitat suitability should produce. These zones are not evenly distributed across suitable habitat. The Pacific Northwest has thousands of square miles of remote wilderness, but sightings concentrate in specific valleys, particular mountain ranges, and certain river corridors. Vast areas of apparently identical habitat show almost no reports. That distinction matters. A real breeding population of large primates would spread across viable territory, the way bears or cougars do. The AI was looking for that pattern. It did not find it. What it found instead was that the hot zones share specific geographic characteristics that distinguish them from surrounding land. They correlate strongly with proximity to limestone cave systems, granite outcroppings, and areas with complex underground water flows. They cluster near confluences where multiple waterways meet. They concentrate in areas with specific magnetic anomalies detectable in geological surveys. And then the AI was cross-referenced against another data set the team had not initially planned to include. David Pauliday's missing 411 clusters, which document unexplained disappearances in wilderness areas, particularly involving children and experienced outdoorsmen who vanish under bizarre circumstances. The correlation was statistically impossible to dismiss as coincidence. Areas with elevated Bigfoot sighting rates showed significantly elevated rates of unexplained human disappearances. The same valleys, the same river corridors, the same mountain ranges. Two phenomena that nobody had ever cleanly connected before were sitting on top of each other on the map. The researchers had expected to find something. They had not expected to find this. The twilight window. The temporal patterns were equally strange. Bigfoot sightings do not distribute randomly throughout the year. They do not follow the patterns a biological creature's seasonal behavior would produce either. They peak sharply during specific months that vary by region, but stay consistent within each region. In the Pacific Northwest, sightings concentrate in September through November. In the Appalachian region, The peak runs July through September. In the Great Lakes states, May through June shows the highest concentration. These patterns do not correspond to human outdoor activity levels. The Pacific Northwest peak occurs after the summer recreation season ends. The Appalachian peak is not during peak hiking season. The timing seems to follow some other cycle. The AI could not connect it to obvious environmental variables like temperature, precipitation, or food source availability. More disturbing was the time of day distribution. While many sightings occurred during daylight hours, the AI detected a statistically significant concentration of encounters during two narrow windows: the 45 minutes immediately after sunset and the 30 minutes immediately before sunrise. These transition periods between day and night show sighting rates over 3 times higher than the amount of human activity during those times should produce. Weather conditions revealed another anomaly. Bigfoot sightings concentrate significantly during periods of atmospheric instability. Approaching storms, rapidly changing weather, sudden temperature shifts. Periods when barometric pressure is dropping or rising fast. The correlation was strong enough that the AI could predict elevated sighting probability based on weather pattern data alone. This does not match known animal behavior. Most wildlife become less active and less visible during unstable weather. They hunker down, they wait it out. Bigfoot sightings do the opposite. They spike. The AI could not explain this through any biological model in its training data. The witness profile. If Bigfoot sightings were primarily hoaxes or attention-seeking fabrications, the witness pool should skew predictable. Younger individuals, people with a history of unusual claims, anonymous internet posters chasing engagement. The AI found the opposite. Witnesses show remarkable diversity across age, occupation, education level, and background. Certain professions are significantly overrepresented in the witness pool in ways that increase credibility rather than decrease it. Law enforcement officers, both active and retired, report Bigfoot encounters at rates far exceeding their representation in the general population. Multiple police officers, sheriff's deputies, and state troopers have filed official incident reports documenting encounters that occurred during duty hours. These are not anonymous internet posts. They are sworn statements from trained observers risking professional reputation by going on the record. Military personnel, particularly those with wilderness survival training or special operations backgrounds, appear in the witness pool at elevated rates. Former military witnesses consistently describe encounters with tactical awareness. They note details about the creature's movement patterns, its awareness of surroundings, and behavioral indicators, suggesting intelligence rather than instinct. Wildlife biologists, forestry professionals, and experienced hunters report encounters at rates significantly higher than random chance would predict. These are people with extensive knowledge of native wildlife and years of wilderness experience. They consistently describe the creatures they encountered as distinctly different from any known North American animal. The AI's analysis of witness credibility indicators showed that Bigfoot witnesses, as a population, score higher on credibility measures than witnesses in typical police investigations. They show lower rates of inconsistency in repeated tellings, lower rates of embellishment over time, higher rates of reluctance to publicly discuss their experiences due to fear of ridicule. That last measure carries weight. Fabrication tends to be pushed. Genuine trauma tends to be buried. The data shows witnesses burying it. The behavioral pattern. The encounters themselves are not random or chaotic. They show consistent behavioral profiles that suggest purpose and intelligence. In approximately 60% of close-range sighting reports, witnesses describe the creature deliberately avoiding confrontation, a pattern of calm avoidance. When spotted, the creature typically moves away calmly rather than fleeing in panic. One pattern surfaces again and again across these accounts. The creature reaches the edge of the tree line, then stops. It turns its head and looks back at the witness, holding the gaze for a moment before stepping into cover. Many witnesses describe the same gesture in nearly identical terms. That is not a flight response. That is assessment. In approximately 15% of encounters, witnesses describe behavior interpreted as a territorial display. The creature stands its ground, sometimes vocalizes, sometimes throws objects, but does not actually attack. The behavior appears designed to drive the witness away from a specific location rather than to harm them. Most significantly, in approximately 8% of encounters, witnesses describe behavior suggesting the creature deliberately revealed itself to them. It steps into view when it could have remained hidden. It vocalizes to attract attention. It positions itself where it will be clearly visible. These encounters often occur when witnesses are alone, during twilight, and in locations with easy retreat routes for the creature. This subset of sightings shows characteristics that suggest intentional contact rather than accidental encounter. Witnesses in these cases frequently describe feeling that the creature was studying them. Some say they felt it was trying to communicate something through behavior or vocalization. The AI detected behavioral consistency across decades and thousands of miles that would be extremely difficult to maintain if these were independent hoaxes. Creatures described in California, encounters from the 1960s, behave similarly to creatures described in Kentucky, encounters from the 2020s. The behavioral profile remains remarkably stable, despite sightings being reported by witnesses who have no contact with each other and often no awareness of historical sighting reports. What the AI found next is the pattern the research team could not explain away and could not stop returning to. For anyone following this analysis to its conclusion, subscribing keeps these investigations coming. The prediction, the final pattern, was the one the research team could not categorize. The AI detected that Bigfoot sighting hot zones predict future human settlement abandonment and population decline with disturbing accuracy. Areas that showed elevated Bigfoot sighting rates in the 1960s and 70s experienced significant human population decline in the decades that followed. Rural communities near sighting hot zones showed higher than average rates of property abandonment, economic decline, and eventual depopulation compared to similar communities at equivalent distances from urban centers, but without elevated sighting activity. The correlation held across multiple regions and time periods. When the AI identified a new sighting hot zone emerging in historical data, it could predict with over 70% accuracy that the surrounding human communities would experience population decline within 10 to 20 years. The sequence was consistent. The sightings came first. The decline followed. This pattern makes no sense under conventional explanations. If Bigfoot sightings are hoaxes or misidentifications, there is no mechanism by which they should correlate with future economic and demographic changes. If Bigfoot is simply an undiscovered ape, its presence should not predict human population movements any more than bear or cougar populations do. The AI cross-referenced this against missing 411 data, and the correlation strengthened. Areas with combined high Bigfoot sighting rates and high unexplained disappearance rates showed the strongest prediction of future human population decline. It is as if certain geographic areas become marked by some phenomenon that both generates Bigfoot encounters and gradually drives human populations away. The mechanism is not immediately obvious. It manifests over decades as economic decline, increased disappearances, and eventual abandonment. The research team checked the obvious counterargument. Maybe Bigfoot sightings concentrate in economically marginal areas that were always destined to depopulate. So, the AI controlled for economic indicators, resource availability, and demographic trends. The correlation between sighting activity and future population decline held even when accounting for these variables. Something about areas where Bigfoot is encountered frequently eventually drives sustained human habitation away, and that something operates on time scales of decades. The equipment failures. The AI flagged another pattern researchers initially dismissed as confirmation bias. Reports frequently describe electronic devices malfunctioning during encounters, cameras failing to work, vehicles experiencing electrical problems, flashlights dying despite fresh batteries, compasses spinning erratically. The standard assumption was that witnesses simply remember equipment failures because they seem significant during frightening encounters. Memory does that. But the AI detected that reports of equipment malfunction cluster significantly in areas with documented electromagnetic anomalies and geological features associated with piezoelectric effects in rock formations. The correlation was strong enough that the AI could predict the likelihood of reported equipment failures based solely on geological data about the sighting location. It did not need any information about the actual encounter to make the call. This suggests that Whatever phenomenon Bigfoot sightings represent, it correlates with locations where natural electromagnetic conditions are unusual, whether the creatures themselves generate or are attracted to such conditions, or whether the conditions somehow facilitate sightings of something that exists in some other state, remains unexplained. The vocalizations reported across thousands of sightings showed the same kind of unexplainable consistency. Witnesses describe howls, screams, wood-knocking sounds, and other vocalizations that they say repeatedly are different from any known wildlife. The AI analyzed audio recordings captured during alleged encounters and compared them to extensive libraries of known North American wildlife vocalizations. The recordings do not match bears, they do not match cougars, they do not match owls or elk, or any native species. They show acoustic characteristics that suggest vocal anatomy different from known primates, including humans. And the timing of when these vocalizations are reported overlaps with everything else. The twilight windows, the unstable weather, the same geographic hot zones that correlate with disappearances and eventual human population decline. The patterns are not independent. They are stacked on top of each other, what it might be. So, what does the AI analysis actually reveal about what Bigfoot is? The researchers who conducted the study acknowledge they do not have a definitive answer, but the patterns the AI detected rule out or seriously damage the most common explanations. The geographic clustering, particularly the correlation with geological features and electromagnetic anomalies, does not match the distribution of an undiscovered biological species. A breeding population of large primates would require extensive territory, would show predictable habitat preferences, and would not concentrate so specifically in areas with unusual geological characteristics unless those characteristics provided some essential resource. The data does not show that kind of resource. The temporal patterns, the twilight concentration, the weather correlation, the seasonal variations do not match known animal behavior. Most wildlife avoid periods of atmospheric instability. They do not show the kind of narrow timing windows the data reveals. The correlation with disappearances and long-term population decline suggests the phenomenon is not simply a passive creature occasionally encountered by humans. Something about these areas appears to actively affect human presence over time in ways that biological creatures do not typically generate. The witness credibility patterns and behavioral consistency also rule out the simple hoax explanation. An elaborate multi-generational hoax tradition would show concentration in specific communities, demographic skew toward hoax-prone individuals, and behavioral descriptions that evolved and shifted over time. The data shows the opposite. What remains are explanations researchers are reluctant to put on the record. Bigfoot might be something interdimensional, something that exists partially outside normal physical reality. That would explain the geographic concentration in areas with electromagnetic anomalies. It would explain the twilight timing, the periods when barriers between states might be thinner. It would explain the correlation with disappearances if certain areas have conditions that allow movement between dimensions. Bigfoot might be tied to consciousness and perception in ways we do not yet understand, partially dependent on observation while still showing genuine behavioral consistency. That would account for the patterns without requiring a hidden biology that should have been documented by now. Bigfoot might be a guardian or a marker species associated with areas that are somehow unstable for human habitation. In that scenario, it is not causing the danger. It is appearing in areas where natural forces humans do not fully understand, make sustained settlement unwise. The sightings would be a warning, not a threat. Or Bigfoot might be something we do not yet have conceptual frameworks to properly understand. A phenomenon that does not fit into categories of animal, spirit, or hoax. Something the data can detect that our current scientific paradigms cannot adequately explain. The pattern that will not go away. What is certain is that Google's AI analysis revealed patterns that both skeptics and believers now have to account for. Skeptics cannot simply dismiss 10,000 plus sightings as hoaxes or misidentification, when the data shows patterns that hoaxes and misidentifications should not produce. The witnesses are too credible. The behavioral consistency is too tight. The geographic and temporal patterns are too specific. Believers cannot simply argue Bigfoot is an undiscovered ape when the distribution and behavior patterns do not match biological creatures. The hot zones are too geologically specific. The timing is too narrow. The correlation with disappearances and population decline is something no ordinary animal produces. The phenomenon is real in the sense that something consistent and patterned is occurring in specific locations under specific conditions. What that something is remains the mystery. But the AI has shown that the mystery is not random. It is structured according to rules nobody yet understands. Google's AI found a pattern in Bigfoot sightings that is unexplainable by conventional frameworks. Geographic clustering that predicts human population decline decades in advance. Temporal patterns that do not match biological rhythms. Correlations with electromagnetic anomalies and disappearance clusters. Witness profiles that suggest genuine encounters with something real. Behavioral consistency that spans decades and thousands of miles. The pattern is there. It is statistically undeniable. And it does not fit any explanation that makes sense within the current understanding of what is possible. These investigations continue, and the back catalog of them keeps building. Following the channel keeps the next one within reach.
So I found that one very, very interesting. You know, I don't know. You know, I don't want to get all woo-woo on you, man. But there's mystical or other ports. But the way things are going and everything these days, man, I wouldn't. But UFOs, Bigfoot, all that. Who the heck knows? Now I meant to mention that over Memorial Day weekend, just right up here, man, I don't know, 5 or 8 miles from us, there was supposed some kids. I think there's 4 kids, and they were supposed to have seen one, and one shot it. Or he said he shot it with a .22 and all this stuff, and maybe my thing about that is, especially that weekend, all the weekends from now, from Memorial Day to Labor Day, that is the busiest area in our whole county, man. It is slammed up there. So were people just messing with them? I would think maybe that was it, but hey, man, you never know. You just, who the heck knows? Crazy stuff. But anyway, man, I thought I'd share that. That's why I put the clips in and stuff like that. I see stuff, and it's just stuff I want to share with you, and get on some of the stuff. Just get the word out more and more, man. They help us in the long run. Anyway, good Lord willing. And them creeks don't rise. We'll be back again tomorrow. See ya.